Hello, dear folks. Welcome to the show. Jack Chow on the East-West Show with G&E TV. With the big news coming, everybody seems to be excited because the two big heads of the two superpowers of the world is meeting right now, right? So in order to share the jubilance, to look into the future of the U.S.-China relationship, I have a special invitation extended to Dr. Peter Hu, very glad to accept it, to talk about it. Dr. Peter Hu has a very high-ranking profile in his what called molecular
biologist
industry, and he himself, being researcher for many years, he made some quite substantial establishment himself. Due to the exposure, long exposure to radiation, he resigned from that field. Does not mean that he resigned from everything. He became later on, just magically and amazingly, and a trade specialist. He's running a big trade firm between U.S. and China, which is also by the same extent successful. That's amazing.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. And you're my hometown friend also.
Sure, all right.
Always glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here every time, especially when we look back into how much you benefited from the U.S. and China relationship during the early days when you established your own academic, what I call pyramid, in your world, and then now you're talking about the successful trade in between the two countries, so you have the most to say, right?
Well, you know what, I think as a naturalized U.S. citizen, and I also as a Chinese American born in China, I'm able to benefit from both cultures and also be able to witness the growth of the China-U.S. relationship. And also, I'm looking forward to see another 10, 20, 50 years of great cooperations between U.S. and China. And this time is the first time that President Xi Jinping has official state visit.
As the president.
As the president to this country. So this is a very, very important moment for both countries. The reason is that U.S. and China, they have tried to understand each other in the last 30 years as to what exactly the relationship between U.S. and China.
Cold War, right?
However, they're not quite 100% sure exactly how to define that relationship, how to analyze before, now, and in the future. They have a lot of areas of cooperation, and they also have a lot of areas of differences.
In order to analyze the U.S.-China relationship, there are lots of different fields people are, each group of people individually focus on, right? To sum them up, though, the whole thing, you're talking about a economical, financial aspect, including trade. You're talking about culture, another whole area, right, which calls for exchange, which calls for understanding. And then you're talking about politics, political area, right? So who's who, all right? And then you're talking about the military area. So can we please, you and I, we sit here to see each of the four different aspects, see why China and the U.S., U.S. and China should go this way, not anything else.
Totally. You know, the relationship between U.S. and China is the most important relationship in the world. As you said, you know what, we're going to analyze from major four areas. The first one is going to be political and the political system. And the second one is going to be the economy. and which obviously is very important to the US and in China.
Okay.
We're going to have some numbers and to present it to our audiences to say why that is so important, intertwined with each other. And in the economy also, we have to talk about carbon control as well as how to find new energy sources.
Yeah, you're right.
And those are the cooperation area between the two countries. And then the third one, as you said, we're going to analyze a little bit about the cultural difference, why we should understand each other from the cultural aspects, how the Chinese try to understand the Americans, and how the Americans are also trying very much to understand how the Chinese are thinking. And then the fourth one is the military. You cannot talk about the two superpowers without mentioning the military status. So there's a lot of areas to cover. But start with the economy, for example. The US and China economy has grown so much that really shocked the whole world. Let's say from 2005 all the way to, say, 2014. We're talking about the US-China trade, surpassed 3 digits. We're talking about more than 300% increase. Some of the state increases more than 500%.
Oh, you're talking about hundreds of percent.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
You know, for example, President Xi Jinping is going to land in Washington State first. The Boeing company is producing nowadays, say, projectively, say 2015, about 1/4 of their airplanes. It's probably about, we're talking about 600 plus airplanes are selling to China.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And also 150 to 600 airplanes, different airplanes. And they also project in next several years, and next 10 to 20 years, they're going to sell to China more than 6,000 airplanes. And that worth at about $950 billion, close to $1 trillion. Okay, close to $1 trillion.
Close to $1 trillion.
Now that means economy, jobs in the United States. That means that China has so much need for airplanes that they have to buy almost 1/4, 1/3 of all Boeing is producing.
Productions.
Yeah, the Boeing producing.
Okay.
So this is why that these two countries will have to cooperate, because the trade is so huge. There's about 1/3 of the whole world trade is between these two countries. And also the population-wise, US-China constituted about 1/4 of the all world population. So this is not a smaller number.
It's,
the stable relationship
1.3 plus
another 350,
another 350 something.
Yeah, the millions.
Right?
So we're talking about 1/4 of the population are Chinese and Americans. So the stable relationship and continue healthy relationship, both in economy, culture, as well as military cooperation, are the key for the whole world.
Speaking of that, though, do you recall August the 19th? On August 19th, China has depreciated its RMB by 3%. This could be a big preparation for the incoming of the U.S. trade in the area of exporting. U.S. export to China, right?
Yes, U.S. export to China has surpassed $280 billion. In 2004.
$280 billion.
208.
Oh, $8 billion.
And that will continue to go higher this year, projected in 2015. So China has become third U.S. export, number 3, right behind Canada and Mexican. So that being said, that U.S. is thinking how to continue to export to the Chinese market, while the China is also to think that how to learn from the U.S. Economy, how to learn from the U.S. systems. In terms of the currency fluctuations, I think it's necessary.
It helps.
It is needed, and the IMF said, they have always wanted the Chinese currency to fluctuate based on the market value, which they did. So I think that is within the line of a market fluctuation.
By market value, though, you're talking about encouraging more of the export, American airport, to the Chinese market, because the cost for American export is reduced by at least 3% versus RMB, right? And then that gives the U.S. products a fair chance, more fair chance, to enter into the Chinese market, which is now turning into a consumer market.
That's exactly true. You know what? When you look at the trade, there's a lot of indicators. One of the trade indicators is how much money come to the port here, how much money exported to China. But from my point of view and from a lot of economists' point of view, that's only one of the main indicators. Now, let me tell you why and how. When you look at the Chinese market 30 years ago, when they tried to invest factories in China, they're enjoying the cheap labor, inexpensive.
Like home-based workshops.
Correct. Right? You know, they establish new factories, and the Chinese people at that time, they have a lot of laborers, and they use that to produce good, which is about 1/10 of the U.S. cost.
Yeah, which they call labor-intensive.
Correct. But after 30 years, Chinese market is changing for good and the bad. For the bad, the U.S. say, you know, how come you always come here a little more containers than we export there? But the Chinese money coming in more than the port reported. They're coming in with investment on U.S. companies. They're coming in with education with their kids to come to the U.S. For example, in 2014, it is estimated close to 300,000 Chinese students come to U.S. colleges to study. Now that comes with the money, comes with their relatives visiting U.S., and also come to, they have to rent an apartment. And most of these 300,000 students are from the wealthy, established Chinese families. So they bring their kids to the U.S. for education. They also bring a lot of money. In 2014, for example, it is estimated for more than $22 to $25 billion just for education alone to this country.
And also, if you want to stretch the picture, though, it also covers the range about their contribution after their degrees obtained, and then during the OPT period of time.
Right.
They have to keep contributing back to our society, which is also a plus.
Absolutely. When you look at the Chinese immigrants in this country, they are actually among the lowest to benefit from social welfare compared to some other countries. For example, Spanish speaking, for example, they also contribute to the economy too. But in general, the immigrants is contributing rather than taking from the economy. However, the Chinese people, because they emphasize so much on their education, they ended up by building more smaller companies, like people like me. You know, in the peak time, sometimes we're hiring 30 Americans.
You yourself is a good example, all right? So let's take a short moment now. With Dr. Peter Hu, we're sharing about the fact that U.S.-China relationship, based upon the economical and financial exchange programs and the import and export trade, you know, are increasing regardless, right? So let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll find out from other aspects, such as politics, right, how we shall benefit from. So stay with us.